Greetings and happy Halloween, everybody. I'm back with another video here for a film which I'd had on a watch list for years, but kept putting it off because I'd actually heard some negative things about it, which is The Lords of Salem from 2012. Now, this is a Rob Zombie film which stars some familiar faces, for his films, which include Jeff Daniel Phillips, Ken Faree, and of course Sheri Moon Zombie as our main star in this film, for which the synopsis is as follows. A radio DJ, Sheri Moon Zombie, in Salem, Massachusetts is plagued by nightmarish visions of vengeful witches after she plays a record by a mysterious group known only as the Lords. So also in this film, we get some real legends, in my opinion at least, making appearances to varying degrees, from co-stars to just quick cameos, such as Patricia Quinn, Dee Wallace, Meg Foster, Bruce Davison, Maria Conchita Alonso, and even Barbara Crampton shows up in this as well. But anyways, back to the actual story on this. So this record kind of seeps into the minds of those who hear it, in particular women, and begins to really kind of drive our protagonist, played by Sheri Moon Zombie, a bit crazy as, these nightmares and visions start to kind of take hold. Now, the mystery at the root of all of this, of course, is what this record even means, and why it was sent to the station, and what it will ultimately cause to happen after being played. Not to mention why our protagonist here seems to be particularly susceptible to its effects, because the effects it has takes hold very quickly. Our story begins on a Monday, and later that night they kind of play the record briefly. It makes her feel a little bit ill. The next day they play it over the airwaves to kind of determine if they should keep this in rotation and continue to play it, or just kind of chuck it because their listeners, or maybe the DJs themselves, just really don't care for it. But by that weekend, our protagonist has already gone really far downhill and off the deep end, looking as if she's kind of having a rough time detoxing from a drug perhaps, so it's really affecting her in a negative way. And these visions of witches and strange demonic creatures and ceremonies continue as more is eventually coming to light about other people that she associates with, and what the meaning of this record and her place in hearing it has. So we get that mystery element that I'm such a fan of in horror movies, and along with that we get a really interesting style. So this one was recently referred to by an acquaintance of mine on social media as the least Rob Zombie film, and I agree, but not in a bad way. This one felt like a Rob Zombie film that had that heavy 70s influence that I've seen in some of his films, mixed with these really strange visuals I would compare to maybe what I've seen in like a Kubrick film, but much more polished than some of his other works. So not quite as Rob Zombie-like to feel, like the Firefly trilogy, meaning, for those unfamiliar, the House of a Thousand Corpses, Devil's Rejects, and Three from Hell, but not so different that it didn't feel like one of his films. More like a balance between, Rob Zombie and studio. And that worked great for me, in my opinion, on this. And as strange as it sounds for a horror film, this is definitely one of its most beautifully shot films, I would say, in my opinion, with a story that's very engaging as well. I honestly don't really understand why this one had any negative reactions, really, that it had back in the day, which had caused me to so frequently put off watching it over and over and over until whatever streaming service I had it in my queue, it would disappear. I would add it on another one and they would lose rights. And I didn't finally get around to checking it out until not that long ago, when I came across a copy of it at Sound Exchange, which is a local shop here that has used media like music and movies and so forth. The most I can figure out is that his films before this were the first two Firefly trilogy films and the Halloween remake and the sequel that he did. And comparatively, this one is very different from those. It even looks very different, but it's got a very different pacing and story to go with that look. And I think maybe it threw some people off, that they went in expecting one thing and got something, a bit different than what they were really wanting at the time. But personally, I found this one to be a lot of fun and more than worth checking out. And speaking of checking out, thanks for checking out this latest video of mine and sticking around to the end, as it really does help out the channel quite a bit. Now, Lords of Salem is, at the time of this video, available on several streaming services, many of which are free, such as the ever-mentioned Tubi, but check out the Just Watch app and see if it's on a service that you already have access to if you're interested in giving it a shot. And just know that going into this, although it is very heavy on the mystery, there is this psychological side to her descent, as this spellbinding kind of album takes control of her in a way, as well as some pretty gross scenes involving ritualistic sacrifice and so on. So, I mean, it is a horror film after all, and some of that's to be expected. Anyways, thanks for coming by, and have a happy Halloween. I will see you in the next one.